Hi, it's Trev from Paddle Portage Canoes here, and I am looking to talk about all things paddles. There are so many options. It can be a bit bewildering when you look at a range of paddles and wonder why so many different kinds, why so many shapes, how do I work out what length, why so many materials. Generally speaking, canoe paddles range from your plastic, fantastic, aluminium and plastic, entry-level recreational paddle, all the way up to the very high-end carbon fiber or Kevlar ultralight paddles. There's going to be various things in between which influence its performance, its weight, its durability, and obviously its cost. I'm just going to look at a range of paddles here and explain a bit about them so that you can help to understand why so many. Start with the basics. So this is your aluminium shaft with a plastic blade, plastic grip, recreational canoe paddle. These are obviously on the lower end of the price spectrum, but the very high end of the durability spectrum. And they're really great for just all kinds of general paddling. And this defined T-grip on the top also will assist me if I choose to use this paddle in some moving water. When you see a T-grip style grip on a paddle, that generally means that it will assist you to control the forces that are acting on the blade when you're in moving water or turbulent conditions. This paddle will feel pretty cold when it's cold out. It's pretty hard to break these, not impossible, but they're a very durable option. We like this particular paddle, this is the Canoe recreational paddle, because the shaft is compressed in the blade, making for a little bit less of a lumpy surface, so that if we choose to feather that blade in the water, there's a little bit less agitation and it helps it perform better, even though it won't be nearly as smooth as a timber or a composite canoe paddle. Looking at timber canoe paddles, there's a great range of differences in them. If you see a canoe paddle that is multiple colors and types of timber glued together, we refer to that as a laminated canoe paddle. The advantages of that is that there's different performance attributes of each timber used. The result is quite aesthetically pleasing. Generally, these paddles are timber that are glued together and then covered in a varnish to protect the timber from the elements. That's essential to protect the wood from deteriorating when we use it in the conditions where we use it. And if you see an off-color tip or even a protective edge along the blade, that's not timber at all. It's actually a casting epoxy resin there to offer protection to the timber. Generally, these paddles are a little bit cheaper because they can be made of multiple cuts of smaller pieces of timber. The result is a really nice feeling paddle that can be in many different shapes. This one here has a palm style grip. What that means is that I can have that multiple different places on my top hand, offering me comfort and versatility when I'm using it as a touring paddle. Also, because it's varnished, it means there's a little bit of care and maintenance involved. The varnish will protect it so long as the varnish is intact. If I get a crack in the varnish or if I wear away some on the edges, it's in my best interest to sand this paddle and revarnish it to make sure that it lasts as long as I would like it to. If you take that same style of laminated timber paddle, it can also be made for whitewater. Now, if you could feel the weight in this, it's considerably heavier than the last paddle that I was holding. However, the blade face is very wide on this one. This means with the defined T-grip, which will give me control, the beefier shaft, the wider blade face, this paddle is meant for some heavy work in some serious whitewater. You'll notice that this paddle has a protective resin edge all the way around the bottom and partway up the sides. And if you could see this one up close in the light, you'll notice it looks as though there's a bit of a fabric on the blade, and there is. It's actually fiberglass reinforcement on this timber blade to protect it from rocks and impacts when I'm using it in big currents and strong whitewater. Moving into the territory of traditional timber canoe paddles, you'll notice this paddle is not varnished, it's an oiled finish. This paddle is made from a single piece of timber, and the timber species can vary. This one is made from black cherry. Some of the other paddles we have might be made from walnut or sassafras, and they all have different performance attributes, different characteristics. Aesthetically, they look different, and they also have different costs attributed to them. Generally, a traditional timber canoe paddle made from a single piece of timber, these are in an oiled finish, which a lot of people prefer for the feel in your hands. There is a bit of care and maintenance required to own a paddle like this, simply oiling it occasionally, and we recommend sealing it with a beeswax paste wax, prolongs the time between oilings. But the feel of this is just a lovely, beautiful feel in your hands. It's a very traditional feel, connecting you to the rich heritage of canoeing as an art form. These paddles take on a variation of different shapes, which I won't get into in this video. But this timber paddle will feel warm in all conditions. It's got some really nice flex to it, which is going to help ease the pressure on my joints over long periods of time. You'll notice that it's got definitely a palm grip and an unbiased face, meaning that I can use this paddle in either direction and it won't be wrong. That paddle was cherry. Here is walnut, and here is sassafras. You can see some different color variations, and if you could feel them, there's definitely some weight variations between the two. Moving along the line, we eventually get to this thing, which is a bent shaft paddle. And if you're anything like me, the first time I got a bent shaft paddle, I used it the wrong direction for more months than I care to admit before somebody had the courage to say, I think you got it the round way, sorry. And so a bent shaft paddle is actually meant to be used with the bend facing forward. And I'll show why that is. These paddles were developed in the canoe racing world, and generally those paddlers are looking for a shorter stroke length with a higher cadence to maintain glide in their canoe. If I'm thinking of efficiency, I want to go forward, which means I need to push water directly behind me. If I get to the strongest part of my stroke, which is as I near my body, I want my blade to be facing directly back so that I can go directly forward, which a bent shaft paddle achieves by being bent slightly forward. With a straight shaft paddle, you could argue that at that point I would actually be lifting water upward, which is not helping to propel me forward as efficiently as a bent shaft paddle. Typically, people use bent shaft paddles with that higher cadence that I mentioned, and they also might use them in a style called the Minnesota switch or hit and switch style paddling, where rather than doing corrective strokes such as a J stroke, they might just choose to quickly swap sides and just apply power on both sides of the canoe. You will see these in outrigger style paddling. You'll see them with a much longer shaft in stand-up paddleboard paddling. And just remember, when somebody hands you one, don't be like me and have the blade kick forward properly so that you can use it how it's intended to. Getting into the realm of carbon fiber or composite paddles, this is where you start to experience some truly ultralight results. And the benefits of carbon fiber are that it doesn't flex much. It results in a very stiff paddle. This gives you an ultimate transfer of power from your body to the propulsion of your canoe, which is what you're looking for. Therefore, carbon fiber paddles are very commonly used in whitewater paddling or in racing, marathon racing especially, because they're lightweight, they're stiff, they don't flex much. Some people will complain that a carbon fiber paddle is hard on their joints because of that lack of flex, and other people might say that a carbon fiber paddle is very cold when it's cold outside. You be the judge. However, it's undeniable that the weight of these things are its greatest appeal, and there's no denying that a carbon fiber jet black paddle is very beautiful. So this paddle is not a whitewater paddle despite the fact it has a defined T-grip. However, it is a very lovely touring paddle, and that grip shape just allows me to use it as I would with any other standard touring paddle. If you could feel the difference between the one I was just holding and this, you would realize this is a definite whitewater canoe paddle made of carbon fiber. This paddle happens to does have a biased blade face. There's quite a significant scoop on one side, meaning that that power face there is the business end of this paddle that I want to use to grab lots of water. This very defined T-grip on top will ensure that I've got control of that enormous blade face when I'm paddling in some very strong currents and powerful water. And this thing is just made for beautiful whitewater river tripping. This is an incredible piece of kit. Hopefully that helps to demystify a little bit of the process of looking across a range of canoe paddles and understanding what they're for. Love to hear more questions. If you've got some, feel free to add them in the comments, and we'll hopefully help to break down any other unknowns that you might have so that we can help you feel informed when you're looking at canoe paddles yourself. Thanks.